Hello, friends of math. Today I am going to answer a question that many of you have asked me. What happens when we divide something by 0? Why it gives infinity and how much is 0 between 0? The thing has its difficulty and I'm going to tell you about it here. When you learned to divide at school, you probably thought of division as dividing something into equal parts or cutting it into portions. There the fractions appeared, the mess of adding them up, the joy of mastering them. So, if I have a cake and divide it into 4 parts, each part has a quarter of a cake, or if I divide 3 liters of water into 8 glasses, each glass has 3/8 of a liter. Great, cool, but let's think about the division in another way. How much is 1 divided by 2? Easy, a half, also called 0.5. That is, if I multiply 0.5 by 2 it gives me 1. Actually this trick works every time. Calculating what is the result of dividing a by b is equal to finding a number that multiplied by b results in a. Are you following me? Let's use this to find out why something divided by 0 gives infinity. Let's say, for example, that something is 1. Actually, it doesn't matter if it's 1 or any other number. The reasoning is the same. Let's divide and draw the results. Let's see, what is the result of dividing 1 by 2? Well, it's a number that multiplied by 2, gives 1, exactly 0.5. But what if we divide it into smaller things? For example, what is the result of dividing 1 by 1, then a number that multiplied by 1 is 1. Exactly, 1. Let's raise the bar. You'll see right away where I want to get to. What is the result of dividing 1 by a half? Well, it will be a number that multiplied by a half gives me 1, and what is that number? 2. Obviously 2 for a half gives 1. Let's divide it by something even smaller. What is the result of dividing 1 by a tenth? 10, which is greater than 2. In this way, as we divide by smaller numbers, the result is an increasingly larger number, so that we can always get closer to 0. And what does this mean? Well, if 0 is the limit of the numbers by which we divide, the limit of the results is infinite. And that's just what it means that something divided by 0 is infinite. It's just a way of talking about limits, because infinity is not a number, it's an expression of a limit. It simply means that dividing by a denominator much smaller than the numerator, gives a very large result. Well, but then there are bright people that say, but what if the numerator is 0? As you say, the number by which you have to multiply whatever it is to give you 0 is 0. So dividing 0 by anything gives 0. Now what? Does 0 between 0 give 0 or does it give infinity? Clear up. Well, calm down, friends. The easy answer is that 0 divided by 0 is undefined. End of story and to bed without dinner for asking nonsense. Okay, since we don't like to leave things unanswered here, we're going to give a more elaborate answer. The division by 0 is a limit to go dividing by numbers that get closer and closer to 0. Let's think of the 0 of the numerator not as a number, but as the limit of a succession of smaller and smaller numbers. For example, 1, a half, a third, a quarter, a fifth. It is a possible succession, but it is not the only one. What do you think? 1 to a quarter, a ninth, a 16th, a 25th. It also tends to 0. They are smaller and smaller numbers. We can then also think of the 0 of the numerator as a limit of those. If we divide each number in this second sequence by the one that corresponds in the first, that is, 1 between 1, a quarter between a half, a ninth between a third, a 16th between a quarter. The numbers we get are 1, a half, a third, a quarter, getting smaller and smaller. That is, 0 between 0 is going to be 0, because the results are getting smaller and smaller. Okay, well, we already have the solution, right? Those who say that 0 divided by 0 is 0 win. Not so fast. What if we do it the other way around? We divide the numbers of the first sequence by those of the second. That is, 1 between 1, a half between a quarter, a third between a ninth, a quarter between a 16th. The results are 1, 2, 3, 4, that is, bigger and bigger. This time 0 between 0 gives infinity. But what are you about? 2 different outcomes. Well, expect that you're going to freak out. Look at this succession. 2, 2 half, 2 thirds, 2 quarters, 2 fifths. They are smaller and smaller numbers that tend to 0. If we divide them by 1, a half, a third, a quarter, a fifth, the result is 2 all the time. So this means that in the limit 0 divided by 0 is 2. We can actually choose ways to approach 0, successions of those, in such a way that when dividing the corresponding terms, the result is whatever we want. So you know, when someone asks you how much is 0 divided by 0, you can tell them the result you want, which will be true. Of course, then you explain it to him, that here we don't like to leave things half done.